At the heart of this debate is a thesis, which will be the topic of today's debate. And the thesis is as follows. U.S. employers can best promote the welfare of the nation by recruiting the top talent worldwide rather than by giving such specialized jobs to potentially less skilled American workers. I'll say it one more time, and then I'll ask for your opinion on this prompt. U.S. employers can best promote the welfare of the nation by recruiting the top talent worldwide rather than by giving such specialized jobs to potentially less skilled American workers. If you agree with this, please raise your hand. Okay. Oh, this will be interesting. All right. Put your hands down. If you disagree, you think we can best promote the welfare by giving these jobs to Americans, not foreigners. Raise your hand. Okay, this is good. This is like a 50-50 split. So strong opinions on both sides here. While you three halls have held your own in-hall competitions and selected 2 speakers to represent you, and they will be speaking in the following order. From Ashdown Hall, Mr. Taylor Kwan. From I might add, Taylor's the only freshman. He's representing the whole freshman class here, so. From Jericho, Mr. Jonathan Adams. I would say hold your applause, but it's 2 people have already getting applause. So I feel like I can't forbid applause now. From Malta, Davin Unger. From Ashdown, Mr. Dexter Kaufman. From Jericho, Miss Miriam Barrett. And from Malta, Miss Joy Anderson. Speakers will have 8 minutes. The first speaker has the option of splitting his time and speaking again at the end. Ryan will be our timer for today, so you speakers look for his hand. You'll have a 1-minute warning at 7 minutes, and then he will shut you up at 8. The top 3 winners today will receive points for their hall, and the top winner will receive $150 cash. Our judges for this afternoon are Dr. Jason Greaser, Dr. Cade Marcotte, Dr. Mark Coppinger, Mr. Ryan Sunley, and Mr. James Good. Please welcome up your first speaker.
Is this working? Okay, I don't use microphones or anything. All right. I'm very grateful today to be able to speak about this topic, about H-1Bs, about immigrants, about foreign workers, because this is a very personal topic to me. Had it not been for H-1Bs, I would not be standing here to be able to give you this message, to be able to give you my position. 20 years ago, my father came into this country as an H-1B worker, working for World Vision, a Christian nonprofit organization, as the global program manager. Though he was paid lower than other consultants around him, he still worked harder to provide for me and my mother, the few family members he had at the time. As time went on, World Vision saw him as a useful asset, as a good worker, and promoted him further, eventually helping him get his green card and then his citizenship. Today, he works for American Express, Director of Client Management, allowing companies such as Google, Apple, and Microsoft to thrive. It's because of foreign workers like my father, that I believe U.S. employers can best promote the welfare of a nation by recruiting the top talent worldwide rather than by giving such specialized jobs to potentially less skilled American workers. While we all agree that we need skilled workers in our society today, we need to ascertain whether we should look for them more in the U.S. or outside. I believe we should look outside for 2 simple reasons. First, that we simply don't have that amount of talent in the United States. And second, because because it is important for the growth of America, both generationally and in the community, to seek outside. What is the H-1B policy? How does it work? Well, for those who aren't well-versed in the social media discussion or those who don't simply understand it, the goal is simple. Recruit the best workers from around the world. Think of it like building a sports team. When you're in sports, you want to pick the best of the best. Take hockey. I like hockey. Canadian. But you want to pick the best people for your team. You're going to want to pick the best people for your team. So what it allows employers to do is look at a bigger pool of subjects, a bigger pool of talent. If the workers are productive, they're hardworking, they help the business, then the employers can help them extend their stay here or help them work to a path of green cards and then eventually citizenship. But if they're not, they're unproductive and the American workers are better, or there are better immigrant workers, then they are fired and they must leave this country. Moreover, these aren't just any workers we're bringing into the country. These are skilled workers who are required to at least have a bachelor's degree, and in many cases, at least a master's or PhD for jobs that they have. Specifically, categories that they fill are STEM jobs, engineering, business, and teaching, and working in medicine. But the question lies, well, why do we do this? Is there not enough talent in the United States? And the simple answer is no, there's not. We don't have the amount of talent needed. We don't have the right amount of talent needed. More than 50% of Americans don't have a bachelor's degree or higher. They have college degrees, associates, and so on. Since the 1990s, America has been growing in its economy and innovation since the rise of technology. And we need skilled workers to fill those jobs. But less than 50% of workers don't have bachelor's degrees, and many of these bachelors don't even go into the jobs that their degree is in, or not even in these STEM programs. How are we supposed to grow? America only became an economic superpower because of getting people like immigrants, like Alexander Graham Bell to invent the telephone, like Alexander Graham Bell to invent the telephone. We have a needed gap of specialized workers, a very specific area of people that we need. We don't have that in America. And this is not a disadvantage to America. This is how our economy functions. We're more consumers rather than inventors all the time. So we need people from outside the United States with different perspectives, different skill sets to be a part of our team. Just as America takes all the best Canadian hockey players, we need to take the best people from around the world so that we can win. But it's not just about making businesses better or economics. The second underlying part to the policy is about a generational plan, a plan to build America with people and community. Because immigrants don't come to just take our jobs. They're not coming here to take our jobs. They're coming here to raise their family. My father came here so that I could have an opportunity that he would never have had. And immigrants come here to give that to their children. They come into these communities, like college towns that we're in. They buy in commerce, exchange in the economy, pay their taxes. What happens? Community grows. Take Seattle, for example, a small lumber mill town way out west that no one ever heard of 5-6 generations ago. When immigrants came and engaged in the economy there, it grew into a city now that is booming in its economy, multiple job opportunities, and is continuing to grow. Immigrants add to this by bringing their families in, and by adding to the economy. And the extra thing is, when they bring their families in, they're giving them a gift that they never had, and an inspiration to work harder, to work for a future, a gift that they've been given. But we've often forgotten this gift as Americans, forgotten that our ancestors were once immigrants who came, or people from around the world to found the nation. We need more of these people who remember this gift, who remember that this is an opportunity they've been given. So in conclusion, the H-1B policy seeks to fill this gap of talent that we have in America and to give us this gift of a new generation inspired to work for the American dream, for the opportunities to give to others and themselves. Ask yourself this question as we continue this debate. Should we give these jobs to Americans who only want to live the American dream, who want to go about their lives, who potentially are less skilled? Or do we give it to the workers who are willing to lay down their lives to their families, to prosper in all, and give a generation a new hope, a generation a message to build and fight? Thank you.
Let's go, Jericho!
It's working. Hello. Hello. A nation is like a sports team. You need to draft the best players every season if you're going to win. This, at least, is how Taylor and how Vivek Ramaswamy describe America. Now, last summer, I attended a conference in Washington, D.C., where Vivek described his vision for a national libertarianism and had the privilege of meeting him afterward. He's a genuinely nice guy and a brilliant man. He's a strong advocate of these H-1B visas and has used them many times. We need foreign workers, he argues, because the American people have gotten lazy and are being outclassed by workers abroad. But while Vivek and Taylor want America to succeed, their path will fail because culture dictates economics, not vice versa. To ask what constitutes the welfare of a nation, we must first answer what is a nation. Does it exist, as Taylor said, to win? Or is it, as Augustine says, the association of a multitude of rational beings united by a common agreement on the objects of their love? Shared affections for the goods of the ordo amoris constitute a people. Love of God, family, neighbor, country. These properly ordered are what bind a people together. They create a strong and unique culture that can't simply be swapped out for another. America is not an economic zone. It is a people, and its welfare is culture. Now, while the welfare of foreign workers, like Taylor's admirable father, are important, if Dr. Rigney has taught us anything, it is to not be emotionally sabotaged by sob stories. I contend that recruiting worldwide won't promote American welfare, national welfare, for two reasons. First, importing those who don't share our culture on a temporary basis degrades it. The second is our positive Christian duty to seek the good of our neighbors, our actual neighbors and countrymen, before the GDP. Now, national welfare is based on a strong, unified, and righteous culture, one that used to characterize America, and still does compared to the rest of the world. You see, this land was settled and founded by faithful Protestants, steeped in Scripture and bred by the American frontier. We retain more Christian capital today than anywhere else in the civilized world, and we seek to restore that capital. Bringing in workers whose culture is in conflict with America degrades it by introducing and propagating false beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors. Now, imagine a dimly lit city, plagued with poverty, filthy streets, the constant fear of brutal violence from corrupt gangs in league with the government. No, I'm not describing Chicago. I'm describing the source country of over 70% of the nearly 1 million H-1B workers, aligning overwhelmingly with the tech jobs that dominate the program. Hindus from India. Carrying a culture and a belief system that is antithetical to ours. For example, Hindu immigrants largely retain their views of the caste system, a horrific and brutal doctrine degrading image bearers to the level of human dung. Do we want more of that belief in the United States, where we seek to foster a common human dignity? The sad condition of countries like India are the result of beliefs like Hinduism. Do we want America to look like that? Honesty, integrity, and charity are the Puritan values that built this country. To argue the superiority of the H-1B system, my opponents will need to prove that importing hundreds of thousands of Hindus, because this is who compose the H-1B workforce, is beneficial to our country, a country already straining under pagan influence. I issue this challenge to the following speakers. How can a greater Hindu presence improve America? Now, while most H-1Bs are from India, you can apply the same logic to others. Half of the remaining ones are from China, currently our greatest enemy. And after that, Iran, Taiwan, and Bangladesh. America is more conservative than every other country on earth. Even in importing Europeans to do our jobs will generally cost us culturally. My opponents argue from economics. My second argument is our positive Christian duty to favor our countrymen, even in cases where H-1Bs are potentially more skilled and more qualified for the jobs than available Americans, because America is not an economic zone. We can't quantify whether H-1Bs have improved Americans' lives, but we can quantify how it has cost them. Last year, over 400,000 Americans in tech fields were laid off, including several good friends, relatives, and members of my church. Yet about that many H-1B workers are in the tech fields. Cases abound of American workers having to train their own replacements and then getting laid off. A few years ago, Amazon laid off 10,000 of its workers, only to replace them all months later with H-1Bs. Even if these replacements have higher skills, can we really justify this? You see, God requires us to seek the welfare of our actual neighbors, our families, friends, and our posterity. Just yesterday, the Vice President of the United States invoked Augustine's Ordo Amoris to this effect, explaining that as it is a Christian concept that you love your family, and then you love your neighbor, and then you love your community, and then you love your fellow citizen, and after that, you prioritize the rest of the world. You see, Vivek was wrong. A nation is not a sports team. It is more properly a family, one that exists as a divinely ordained unit with responsibilities to each other. Following Augustine, Vance claimed at the same conference in DC that I attended, something you hear people say is that America is the first creedal nation, that America is an idea. Now, America has really good ideas, but America is a nation. It is a group of people with a common history and a common future. Passing up a skilled American just because someone else is slightly more qualified, when a mentor's will and commitment could push the American to reach that level, betrays a preference for profit over neighbor. America has sufficient labor for these jobs. We just aren't wanted. If our own people are performing poorly, how does increasing reliance on foreigners to do our jobs improve our situation? Our dependence is a liability. You can never count on foreign aid for long. Do we want a temporary elite worker class with foreign allegiances? Should we depend on economic mercenaries? We aren't talking about immigrants, as Taylor brought up, but temporary workers. Our long-term advantage is to train our own people in these tasks and equip them for success. Personal investment, not only by parents and professors, but also by businesses and employers, is needed to regain our former excellence. Lastly, for those who must see the economics, have you heard of remittances? H-1Bs send $85 billion a year back to their home countries. That's $85 billion, going understandably to where their loyalties lie, their home countries. But it would have been exchanged for goods and services with local providers in the United States. You want to argue for economic advantage. I can point to what it costs us. Can my opponents point to where it helps? Will we train our nation's sons in a strong American culture to reach surpassing excellence, or will we depend on economic mercenaries? Is America a people where hiring affects our neighbors directly, or is it a gamble to get the highest possible GDP? Remember, we are a nation of settlers, a people who founded this country, after all, to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. We aren't a sports team, we're a people. Thank you.
Let's go, Davin! Let's go!
Hello? There we go. All right. For those of you who don't know, I come from the beautiful province of Alberta. And while I may not be the top talent worldwide, I am proof that the affirmative side sources its speakers internationally. But one thing I noticed in coming down here is that northern Idaho has a lot of fields. And I find it interesting that farmers around here don't just plant their crops and let the sun and the rain do the rest like some of us northerners. In fact, Idaho farmers every year pay hefty amounts to have their fields fertilized because they know that they can increase crop yield with the help of external nutrients. Sure, they could plant their wheat in the ground as is, but they know that a harvest is only as rich as the soil it grows in. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that American companies can best cultivate the welfare of this nation by enriching their workforce with international minds. Now, I'd mainly like to address the issue of global recruitment based on its effects on the domestic front, that is, on America's industry, economy, and culture. But I'd also like to briefly touch on the international front. My hope is that by the end, you will see that both of these considerations call for the strategic enlistment of foreign talent. Now, before I begin, I'd like to get something clear. Although H-1B visas do indeed provide the occasion for our discourse, the thesis we are debating today works from the assumption that U.S. employers obtain the best talent worldwide. And so any argument that undermines this premise has stepped out of the bounds of our discussion. I'm talking about things like claiming that the H-1B system brings in subpar workers or that it functions like a lottery. These are red herrings, and they have no place in this discussion. Now, I agree with Jonathan's emphasis on culture. I really appreciate that. But a nation also has to eat. We cannot ignore the economic side to this issue. And indeed, as he emphasized our Christian obligation, we have a Christian obligation to feed a nation, to keep its economy going. And so we can't forget that. I believe hiring globally is a good thing, first, because recruiting skilled workers from other countries will increase industry output. Let's say the Ford Motor Company recruits an engine designer from Japan who shows them how to cut manufacturing costs by utilizing more readily available ceramics in their spark plug insulators. Okay? The company will then be able to boost their production having lower raw material costs. Right? Just as with the printing press or the assembly line, the more a company can make, the more a company can sell. And so recruitment of foreign skill will bolster America's welfare by streamlining its production. Now, Jonathan asked, how does employing foreign aid help our position? And I think it helps our position in that it will open up multitudes of new opportunities for Americans. How will it do this? Well, let's go back to the Ford example. Once a company has increased its output, it's going to need to accommodate that growth with expanded infrastructure. That means more factories, more dealerships, more maintenance garages. Who's going to work there? Americans. American mechanics, American salesmen, and American production designers. Ultimately, the temporary use of foreign minds will put thousands of new jobs into American hands. So, I'd like to address the point that they might say, that's all good and well, but what about those elite jobs? Shouldn't Americans dominate those positions as well? And I say, absolutely. But you can't pound a nail without a hammer. Americans can't perform in those positions that require skills they just don't have. And so I propose that Americans apprentice under these foreign minds and ultimately rise to those offices themselves. Now, I'm not under the illusion that this is going to happen on its own. In order for this to work, companies will need to do two things. They'll need to they will need to limit the duration of these foreign internships, and they will need to require these workers to train their own workers. And so, in the end, it will be Americans and not foreigners sitting behind those executive desks. And as Jonathan objected, won't bringing in all this cultural influence dilute us as a people, as a culture? But I think this sentiment is misguided. He pointed to other countries and examples of corrupt beliefs, but let's look at concrete examples in our own culture. Has the proliferation of Taco Bell, Taco Time, and other foreign cuisines corrupted your culinary world? No. Has the proliferation of foreign athletes in American pastimes destroyed American sports? Sadly, no. And so, look at the example when Antonin Dvorak, when he came to the United States and wrote his American Quartet, he wasn't painting over American culture. Rather, he gave this country a gift that shaped American composing for years to come. So you see, this culture has long benefited from the abilities of other nations, all the while maintaining its own identity. But let me switch gears now and look at the side of this debate that thus far I think has been neglected, namely the effects of hiring overseas operators on America's international status. Now, many fear that America will be surpassed by foreign economies. And why is this? I think it's because wars are fought on the backs of economies, right? Just as an army marches on its stomach, so also a nation fights on its industry. And so I think that by building more powerful workforces, companies in America can galvanize this nation with the armor of industry. I've already mentioned the cultural benefits of hiring internationally, but you should also recognize that this protects you as a country. Aren't you all glad that J. Robert Oppenheimer joined the Allies instead of working for Hitler? Right? If he had stuck with the Nazis, he might have beat you to the bomb, and this would be a very different country. I could talk about Einstein, Tesla, Carnegie, and a whole host of others. But the point is this: great minds are going to surface one way or the other. The only question is who is going to benefit from them. And I say, why not you? Why not you? Ladies and gentlemen, I trust that today you have seen that the fallow ground of American workforce is ready to be fertilized. And by enriching it, you have the opportunity to increase your harvest 100-fold. Will you take hold of the plow and cultivate your industry, your nation, your country? Or will you rely on the status quo? Thank you.
I'd like to give credit to the previous speakers. I think we've chopped away a fair bit so far in the discussion. But I do think we need to pull back and recenter the head of our axe right on the prompt. The prompt states, U.S. employers can best promote the welfare of the nation by recruiting the top talent worldwide rather than by giving such specialized jobs to potentially less skilled American workers. We are not discussing, as Taylor said, immigration policy. The H-1B visa is not intended to be used as a mode for obtaining citizenship. If you want to become an American, if you want to pay taxes alongside me, if you want to break bread with me, and have your kids play sports with my kids, I'm all here for it. Come, join us, become a citizen. But obtaining citizenship is not the issue being debated. The prompt asks whether American employers, American businesses, American leaders are benefiting America, their nation, by importing highly skilled labor. This practice may benefit businesses, it may benefit the economy, but Davin, our country is more than just our economy. Our country has culture. America has an identity. These are non-negotiables that cannot be denied and must be protected. For example, the American dream is just that. It's American. When American employers import foreign labor into our country, they neglect to respect and they reject the reality of American values and culture. These foreigners are here for money, not for country. They have no allegiance to the United States. They have different cultures and bring with them foreign religions that compete with our native Christianity. And while they may bring with them a strong work ethic, like Elon Musk says, it's not a Christian work ethic. What our country needs is more Christianity, not foreign nationals with a desire for money and a single-minded work ethic. A thriving economy is nice, and I'm excited to see what Donald Trump is going to do over the next 4 years. But a thriving economy could simply mean that our country has a serious case of mass avarice. Just because you're eating food doesn't mean you're eating healthy food. The action of eating is not in itself good, just like a thriving economy is not in itself good. The cocaine business may be booming right now. Human trafficking may have its best quarter to date. Cash flow does not determine the health of our nation. In fact, wealth, in my opinion, often makes us lazy. We want to be comfortable. We want things to be cheap. but we do it often at the expense of the values and religion that made America great in the first place. And employers need to realize that and do what is difficult instead of what is easy or cheap. Now, I'm going to assume that everyone here believes that working and living in a society involves far more than possessing one particular skill. I assume this because we're all here pursuing a liberal arts degree, which we believe, and the college touts, will equip us with the ability to lead the nation, to lead the nations. You've all proven to me that you believe that work ethic, values, critical thinking, breadth of knowledge, etc., are far more important than pure technical skill. So when employers treat employees like interchangeable parts of a machine, they reveal their narrow-mindedness and utilitarian worldview. Businesses are not machines that you can just plug and play. They're more than that. Businesses reflect humans. They are living organisms with an identity, a culture, and subcultures. Now, the idea that talent acquisition is a zero-sum game is a farce. Humans have untapped potential. As Davin said, if we want talent, we can cultivate it in our country. We can do it natively instead of outsourcing it. Companies need to remember that they are American companies, and if they are not happy with the quality of American employees, maybe they should start funneling more money towards educational programs that equip Americans better. If Elon Musk thinks Americans are lazy, then maybe he should invest in private schools. Set up programs that motivate kids to work hard and be curious. Shape the culture rather than steal from other cultures. Heck, drop a Super Bowl ad that encourages men to get off their couch and do something with their life. Corporations, by using H-1B visas, are solving the symptoms without addressing the cause. Now, I'd like to address Taylor's idea of the American team. Just because you have stellar players, and maybe you make it to the World Series, doesn't mean that your team culture is sound. For example, Ronald Acuna Jr., who won the 2018 Rookie of the Year while playing for the Atlanta Braves, was incredibly caustic the entire time and was constantly showboating, and a lot of his teammates hated him. Our stellar performance in the economy does not mean that we are healthy as a nation. Now, Davin says that importing foreign labor will create more manufacturing jobs as the economy grows. But I ask you, where are our manufacturing jobs right now? They're overseas. They're in China. They're in Taiwan. They're not native. So no, as our economy grows, we are not going to have more manufacturing jobs for Americans. We're going to have more manufacturing jobs for the Chinese, for the Taiwanese. We've outsourced our infrastructure, and now we're trying to outsource our white-collar jobs too. Our Constitution does not begin with the phrase, "We, the United Corporations of America, in order to make more money for ourselves," et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. No, it begins with "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves," and listen to this, "our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." Trump claims that he will put America first. If he truly believes this, then he should ban H-1B visas. American companies can no longer be allowed to prioritize foreigners over their own countrymen. Now, I don't have much time left, but I'll leave you with this last thought. A lot of people who are on H-1B visas are Chinese. The Chinese have been stealing from our companies without regard. They don't care. They want all of our schematics, and they want to steal everything from us, and they'll do so blatantly. So what happens when we're allowing all these Chinese to come into our companies, work for us for 6 years, and then return to their nation? Thank you.
I am not an American. I hail from north of the border, from the would-be 51st state according to Trump. Not only that, but I am also currently in the process of trying to get an H-1B visa so that I can continue working here in the United States after I graduate. So I have a personal stake in this issue. For me, this is not an abstract question. This is something that affects my life very immediately and significantly. But I'm not here just to argue that the H-1B program is good for me as a Canadian. I believe that US employers can best promote the welfare of the nation by recruiting the top talent worldwide rather than by giving such specialized jobs to potentially less skilled American workers. The negative side, conversely, is trying to convince you that it is in the best interest of your nation for employers to hire less skilled American workers rather than recruiting the top talent worldwide. Just pause on that for a moment. We are not talking about comparing an American national and a foreign worker who are of the same skill level. The negative side is arguing that US employers can best promote the welfare of the nation by not hiring the most capable and skilled workers in the world. They're arguing, furthermore, that hiring practices should not be based on a worker's skill, ability, or experience, but on their nationality. Does that sound a bit off to you? Because to me, it just sounds like affirmative action with a thin veneer of patriotism smeared over top. I've only lived here for a few years, so maybe I'm wrong, but I kind of thought the whole point of America is that it's a meritocracy. Now imagine you graduate from NSA in a couple years and taking Dr. Merkel's advice on ambition, you go on to start a successful business. You're seeking someone to fill a specialized role in your company, and the best person you can find is a highly skilled worker from another country. You want to hire this worker, and he wants to work for you. But the only reason you can't hire him is because the government won't allow you to sponsor him for a visa. This will make your business run less effectively, which in turn will be worse for the American economy and worse for America as a whole. America prospered because of the principle of meritocracy, the conviction that anyone from anywhere could rise to the top if they were the best at their work. But the negative side seeks to argue that American employers promote the welfare of the nation by acting on the reverse of this principle, that it doesn't matter nearly as much what you can do as where you're from. However, the negative side has also argued that there are other benefits to hiring from exclusively within the US, and one of the main reasons they've brought up is that bringing immigrants from countries that don't share American values will weaken American culture. But the fundamental mistake of this kind of argument is that it fails to recognize that people who are choosing to pursue H-1B visas are doing so because they are attracted by what America has to offer. I know this because I'm one of them. We're not talking about bringing the great mass of people from Europe or Canada or India here. We're talking about individuals, people who, by choosing to come to America, have already differentiated themselves from the people around them. If we were talking about issuing H-1B visas to the entire population of India or China or Europe all at once, that would be a big problem, but that's not what the visa does. It allows individuals who want what America has to enter and take part. These are not the kinds of people who will be a threat to American culture and values. They will be your best ally in preserving it because they have chosen to be here. And to illustrate this, I want to talk about something else that I have personal experience with, and that is coming to New St. Andrews from public school. I was public schooled K-12. I had never heard the words classical education until I found NSA's website when I was in grade 11. I had never taken Latin or rhetoric, and I had never read a book in an English class written before the 20th century. But I remember the day I first heard about NSA, looking up the website, and being absolutely astonished. I remember staying up late into the night reading the course catalog, reading about all the things I could study, the way this school approached education, and I knew very quickly this was where I wanted to go to college. But if the negative side is correct, NSA really shouldn't be enrolling public schoolers like me. Go visit any public high school, you'll quickly find out that the students there clearly don't have the same values as NSA students. However, like H-1B applicants, public schoolers who come to NSA do so because they see what's here and they want to be part of it. They want something other than what they were brought up in. And as I'm very thankful for, NSA lets us come. Remember, we are debating whether US employers should be able to hire the top talent worldwide or have to settle for a less skilled native worker. Now, imagine if admission to NSA wasn't based on your grades, standardized test scores, or writing samples, but on whether you came from an ACCS school, were a Paedo-Baptist, and a member of a CREC church. I would not be standing here, and neither would many of my classmates and friends who I know are an immense blessing to our school. Likewise, if American employers are required to hire less skilled workers, rather than being free to hire the best talent in the world, they are depriving themselves of an immense blessing for this country. I think all I need to do to prove this is the case is point to the members of faculty and staff right here at NSA who can teach us because they were able to get a visa and come here, and who have made my time so much the richer. The negative side has also made the argument that hiring foreign workers is harmful for the unemployed workers already here in the United States. Why hire from abroad when there are people here already without jobs? The error of this argument is that it treats the economy like a zero-sum game, as if there's only a fixed number of jobs to go around. Those of you who took Polycon, your alarm bell should be going off right about now. Immigrants who move here, bringing their families with them, actually increase the demand for goods and services, contributing to the creation of more jobs. Furthermore, the H-1B system is set up with roadblocks to prevent the exploitation of American workers. For an H-1B applicant to be admitted for the initial period of 3 to 6 years, the employer first must prove that the immigrant worker is being paid at the same levels as current workers and that their being employed will not adversely affect workers already in the field. For the applicant to be admitted permanent status, the employer needs to show that he has sought and not been able to find qualified native workers. In conclusion, let me return to the point I made at the beginning. This debate is not over whether it is better to hire a foreign worker over an equally skilled American worker. The burden of proof is on the negative side to convince you that it is better for the government, by restricting H-1B visas, to force a US employer to hire a less skilled American over the top talent worldwide. And if they succeed today, I just ask that you would allow me to finish writing my thesis before having me deported.
So, somewhat contrary to Davin's point, I am a foreigner who is arguing the negative. I come from a country that has put in these very policies, and we have run into the biggest difficulties that we could have never imagined from the start off. Needless to say, I think culture is important, and I think culture is more important than any individual offer for a job. Progress is the kind of term that we've been throwing around here, that the progress and the welfare of the nation is bound up in the economy. But what if you don't have that nation left anymore? What if it's something else? Every time you whip out your Apple smartphone or your Android, if you're a lesser citizen, you're depending on technology. And nobody wants to be called the old fuddy-duddy in the corner who can't tolerate change and technology. But progress is a very slippery term. And I want to ask you today, what type of progress are you looking for? Recruiting these top talent workers does not promote the welfare of the United States because the welfare of the nation is not determined by economy. Advantage, strength, power, and longevity depend on maintaining the nation's spirit and culture, and this is vital. Will your grandchildren get to be part of America? Your great-grandchildren? What about the generation after that? The basic human rights, American rights to pursue life, liberty, and happiness need to be protected by the nation continuing in this similar spirit of freedom. So I'm going to do two things. One, I'm going to argue that my opponents have misunderstood the true nature of economy. And two, what I've already said, we need this freedom. True economic success is not in the factories, it's not in the Amazon warehouses or the stock markets. These are all just signs of it. True economies depend on knowledge. After all, scientia potentia est. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is the most important commodity. And we don't have to go very far to find it. The internet, conferences, journal articles, books, universities that foreign nationals flood to and do research for, this is generating the knowledge. We don't need to generate knowledge necessarily as much as we need to work hard with what we've got. We've all heard that leaders shape culture. The people who have knowledge and apply it are those who control society. Just think of the narrative of the COVID vaccine. Top talent scientists, doctors, engineers, etc. can inform our opinion of the world for good or evil. The top talent workers are the ones that inform the narrative. It would be foolish, very foolish, to think that this type of recruitment won't change the face of America. Americans cannot sit by with their feet up while others discover and use the knowledge, and at the same time will somehow expect that we'll be equipped. This policy can only make us degenerative and incompetent. It cannot make us innovators. Secondly, these top talent workers coming in are not American citizens, and number two, they have absolutely no interest in becoming American citizens. Now, I want to clarify that I am not against other cultures. Obviously, I'm here. I'm not against you guys. I love the cultures that I've interacted with and experienced. And some could even reasonably argue that the very essence of America is multicultural. But we're talking here about policy. We're talking about decisions for employers and governments on a national scale to make. We're talking about the welfare of America specifically and its longevity. Of course, I admit American culture does have to change, but that change should be for the better. We should not fall into the trap of false definitions of equality and diversity. It may surprise you, but some cultures aren't just equal, they're inferior. There are societies out there who do oppress women, who do limit free speech and control their citizens, and they come here. 1 Timothy 5:8 says, "A man is accursed if he cannot provide for his own household." What would you think of a man who neglected his own children to look after someone else's? Or even worse, if a man abandoned his own children because someone else's were better than his? This is what this proposal is doing. If you've done this, you've failed in your duty as a citizen and misunderstood what it means to be part of a nation state. This would probably be easier by example. I come from the United Kingdom. We're a melting pot of different ethnicities and peoples, and the government's failure to cultivate a British first mentality has made us run into these problems. We now have Indians and Pakistani, specifically Muslim members of parliament, making policy in favor of their ethnic group alone, with not even an inkling of the idea of Britain. Our Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has embarrassingly come under public scrutiny because he failed as former chief of public prosecutions to prosecute gang rapists in major UK cities. Why? Because these men were gangs of mainly Muslim, Pakistani men, and it would be unfair to prosecute them for gang rape because it was just their culture. These top talent workers will come into America with the mindset of my place first, my community first, and their ties are much stronger than ours. And all the American values of freedom of speech, hard work, and self-made man are straight down the drain. Perhaps even the remaining culture of Christianity on which America was founded will rapidly be replaced by something else. What can you realistically do with the melting pot where not everyone in the pot wants to melt? Not to be too pessimistic, but countries aren't always friendly towards each other. Let's lay aside the nice terms of globalization, foreign aid, and economic treaties for a second. What do other nations actually do? Do you know how the Roman Republic conquered land and secured it for themselves? How did Britain actually conquer the world and all of India? By establishing colonies and trade treaties. Roman people would establish themselves in a town or area, and they would refuse to assimilate. They would refuse to adopt local customs or religions, but they would evangelize for their own culture. Even though the Romans let peoples keep their culture to some degree, that didn't matter because it was only a matter of time before the nation would be refounded under the eagle. That is how the culture of the Roman eagle, that is how the culture of the Union Jack made its way to the ends of the world. Think of your own history. Some of the colonies of America were like those Jamestown in Virginia, named after James I. Colonies, small pockets of people refusing to conform to the dominant culture, have long been a very effective method of usurping a state. So what do we want? Will they be using us, or will we be using them? Let's not give our prosperity to other hands than our own. The pinnacle of Americanism has always been freedom. Let's not bondage ourselves to other nations to do the hard work for us. The welfare and existence of this nation as we know it, can only be sustained by the independence we fought for before. It is only in this freedom that true wealth and welfare can continue. There's a cost to letting in foreign workers, and the cost is too high.
All right. Well, seeing as I get to split my time, I have about 50 seconds left, and I'm sure all of you would like to go home tonight. I will be brief. To first point, I would like to respond a little bit to what the negative team says and summarize where we've gone in today's debate. The negative team has mainly argued that we will be affecting culture and harming the culture in America, and it's not just about economy. It's not just about economy. Jonathan pointed out about Hindus coming into this country. How can that affect it? But I want to ask you guys a question. If people are coming in, how do we change as Christians people's perspectives unless we surround them in community? How do we change their different ideals? How do we reach out to the world, but rather than bringing them in? Also, another point that has really gone unaddressed is the problem of the technological gap in the. Oh, never mind then. Thank you.
All right. Well, before we announce the winners here, we have to poll the audience again, see which side won, who persuaded the most people to change sides. So, if you initially raised your hand to vote for hiring American workers and not foreign workers, and now you believe we should hire foreign workers and not American workers, please raise your hand. Oh, not too many people here. Okay, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, somebody's forcing somebody's hand up. I don't know if that counts. All right. And if you initially voted for foreign workers and now you say, no, I think we should hire Americans, raise your hand. Okay. All right. Well, congratulations, negative side. You persuaded more people today. But I know what you're really concerned about. So before I announce these winners, it's also important to note that we do have many international students here at New St. Andrews, and you are warmly welcomed here. We love that you're here, and we hope more of you international students who are watching this recording will come and apply for NSA. The speakers of the views of the speakers are not the views, do not represent the views of the college. Anyway. With that said, it was a very tight race here as expected, but we do have a result. So in third place, congratulations from Malta Hall, Mr. Davin Unger. In second place, from Jericho Hall, Mr. Jonathan Adams. And taking home the gold today and the $150 from Jericho Hall, Miss Miriam Barrett.